Lawfare, I think the simplest way to understand it, right, is the weaponization of the law or use of the law in a way that is as a legal offensive, with the intent to criminalize, with the intent to intimidate, with the intent to chill. And within the context of lawfare, you have strategic lawsuits against public participation, or SLAPs, which is exactly this, right? The energy transfer case is a classic SLAP suit, which is essentially meant to intimidate, chill dissent. As you mentioned, it's about Greenpeace, but at the end of the day, it's not about Greenpeace, right? This is a proxy war. It's a proxy case, against tribal sovereignty. Okay, so they lost the case against the tribe initially, and against, well, specifically Dave Archambault as the tribal chairman. But in many ways, they're still going after things that are central to, right, the treaty rights and the burial sites and the sacred sites that were desecrated at Standing Rock. And they're saying, no, this is actually, they're going to the court of public opinion, right? And creating in a legal record, creating a legal record that backs up the conservative talking points of, well, people are paid to protest, there's paid protesters, there's, internal agitators. We know that there were internal agitators at Standing Rock, and that they were paid by Tiger Swan and paid by Energy Transfer, right? These were Tiger Swan infiltration of the private military and security company that was employed by Energy Transfer.
And also FBI informants too. Like, let's not forget.
And FBI informants. Exactly. Right. And one of the things that came out at trial was actually some of their expenditures on private military security companies and private security generally. And this was like in the tens of millions of dollars. So they spent tens of millions of dollars, right? This is per Energy Transfer and Gibson Dunn's own like trial exhibits. Tens of millions of dollars on security Standing Rock. And when we look at the defamation claims in this case, the defamation claims are things that we know as Indigenous peoples, and anybody that was at Standing Rock, or anybody that watched the live streams, or anybody that watched, the dog bites, right, and the dog attacks on water protectors, that was almost practically live on Democracy Now! There are so many like third-party public sources of information that could show that the statements that they are saying were defamatory and supposedly false were actually true, right? And I think this comes down to a very concerted effort on the part of Gibson Dunn, right, as a law firm that is used to using the law in a way that is violent. And as a quick example, they took up the Brackeen case, the Anti-Indian Child Welfare Act case, all the way to the Supreme Court and ran with it pro bono. So we know that in this case, Energy Transfer versus Greenpeace, Gibson Dunn charged, I think, like close to $100 million in legal fees. So imagine what the legal fees are in a case that goes all the way up to the Supreme Court. If this is in Federal District Court of North Dakota and State Court of North Dakota, now imagine what the amount of legal hours and legal capacity is needed to take up a case to the Supreme Court, right? And you can draw conclusions from there. It's the same case that brought a private, corporate-backed, Chevron-backed prosecution against human rights attorney Stephen Donziger, who won a $9.5 billion judgment for Ecuadorian, indigenous plaintiffs in the Ecuadorian Amazon, because Chevron dropped, and left 16 million gallons of toxic waste in oil pits in the Amazon uncovered, creating cancer and all the things that come with oil, right? And just this toxic waste that can happen when, things are not done with proper attention to the communities that live in these areas, right? And so that ended up in 990 some days, 993 days, I think, of home detention for Stephen Donziger, and 40 days in a federal prison, right, for a petty misdemeanor. So the kind of, lawfare that Gibson Dunn is used to practicing, it's very intentional,